my mother watching?
That's so funny.
All right. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the North Liberty Library Board of Trustees for October 23rd, 2023. I didn't do that as hard as I did last time. So, all right. Any additions or changes to the agenda? Does anybody have anything?
No.
One thing I'd like to bring up real quick is if I'd like to request a review of our policy on how the public reacts or what the public does
The
if
public comment,
on banned books, like what?
the statement of concern,
Something.
the one that we have on.
Yep, that one. Yep, that's what my dad told me to say. So I did that. Okay. Other than that, item number 2. Just a quick comment. In the environment, I work at Northwest, and so I'm around students a lot more than I thought I would ever be in my life. And this book ban that was recently in the paper and that's been going around is scaring a bunch of the students there. And so, school libraries aren't what they used to be. And so I'm wondering, what can we do as a library to make sure that people know that we're open. We have things in place to where they can explore what they want to explore and not have to worry about someone breathing down their neck. So I'm wondering if there's any way we could, maybe have like a elevator pitch for something like that, or just going along with that. If anybody else has any comments or concerns about the recent newspaper article, please go ahead.
I will share that I'm actually meeting with our Ellsworth and Allison, who are the libraries or directors at ICPL, Iowa City Public, and Coralville this week to talk about a unified voice and what that looks like. Unfortunately, we can tell people it's unfortunate they can't access them at the school, but we'll certainly, by giving out all the kids' library cards, which we've done, they all have the ability to come to our library unless their parents have opted out, which I think there's a very small handful of folks who have, but I don't even know if it's a dozen. So we have 14,000 students with library cards to our libraries. They can all come to any of our libraries to access, and they can also access the online collection if they have the ability to do that. So we give them those options, and certainly are taking as many steps. Social media, we try to make sure we're putting stuff up. We also have the poster that we put up in the library about diversity and equity and making sure that we have books that are for everyone, that are staff designed. So if you haven't seen that, it's beautiful. You should come take a look. And then we are looking at, we just talked with Nick Burgess about they have a shelf at the Ranshaw House, and the Friends have agreed, which it's in my report, but to start with $500 to build a shelf with banned book titles or challenged book titles in our state. And Andrew's building that collection right now as we speak. So he started that last week. So we should have that in place relatively shortly, and those books will be, that's why we ask the Friends, because we know it'll be similar to a little free library where folks can take the books. We'll put book plaques in and just say, bring it back, get a different one. Or, we know there'll be some loss, and that's okay, because that means we're getting books into people's hands, which is really the ultimate goal, but we can't do that with our funding. So the Friends have agreed to fund that.
Nice.
Amazing. Anybody else have any comments on any of that?
I saw the email from Iowa City Schools and opened up the list, and it was sad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books that.
And that call came from, I believe, that the impetus for those releases is from the Register asked schools to start laying them out there, and so people are going to see that. Unfortunately, our biggest challenge is going to be getting folks to understand the implications of it, because people really don't get it, and that loud minority is the ones who are the most vocal right now and the most prepared to be vocal, unfortunately, because they have a lot of money behind them. And we can go into lots of details, but unfortunately the bottom line is it's people who want to see public schools go away or public services go away
Yeah.
Right.
and privatize those things, and that just gets into a whole nother ballgame. So with that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it's just upsetting, I guess. But again, we're a resource for the community. The community should know that they should feel welcomed and appreciated at our library.
yes, and you guys have also put out a statement before you were on the board, Jack.
Oh, sweet.
A statement of inclusion,
Yep.
which is on the website as well.
Yep.
So we do our best to make sure that folks know that
Yes.
and having our eye on that, and figuring out ways to reach people that we haven't reached yet.
It's nice. Nice. All right. Public comment. No. All right. Casper's out there chilling with his friends. Okay. Then approval of minutes for September. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve September minutes.
Second that motion.
Perfect. And then we'll do a vote. All in favor, I guess. I don't know if I said that right.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. The minutes are approved for September. On to item number 5, staff introduction and training.
And you're on.
Hi, my name is Nick Shimon. I am the Adult Services Librarian. I started about 6 months ago here in North Liberty. I grew up in Illinois. Undergrad is in mathematics and computer science from Illinois. Got my master's degree in library science from Indiana in 2006. And then have been the director of IT and library services in West Branch since until March this year. So I'm glad to be here. Tonight I'm here. Is there any questions you have about me or any questions for me starting off? No? Okay. It's been a while not that long since I've talked to a board. So tonight I'm talking about the Surgeon General's statement of, the epidemic of loneliness that he released in May this year, and how library services affect that. So for the longest time now, it seems like a little over 10 years, I've been talking about the library as a center for community, having to distinguish that from a community center, which people usually think of as basketball courts and that sort of thing. But the center for building community. And I think it's honestly one of the most important things that a library can do. I think it provides the basis for all of the other services that we provide, or not all of the other services, but it provides the basis for the services that we provide. One of the keynote speakers that we just recently heard from at the ARSL conference is known for the comment that bad libraries only build collections, good libraries build only services, great libraries build communities. It's been on that focus and the focus in our community that I've had throughout the past 10 plus years, I think. So the epidemic of loneliness talks about how the feeling of isolation and the trend of people spending time alone is affecting health, both in terms of individuals and of the society as a whole. So it started for me a long time ago, probably around 2010, when they started doing the Blue Zone projects, if you've heard of those. In around 2010, I think some of the local cities started working on Blue Zone certifications. It's the first community that was Blue Zone certified was Albert Lee, which is just north of the border. I think it was Cedar Rapids and Iowa City were some of the first in Iowa to work on those certifications. The Blue Zone projects looked at the top 5 locations in the world in which the people lived the longest, and trying to figure out what those populations did that made them live longer. And they identified 9 different points that helped those communities live longer. One of them is, just general movement. They moved a lot as part of their day. They didn't necessarily exercise, but they weren't sedentary either. One was they primarily ate a vegetarian diet. They weren't vegetarians, but they used meat as a sort of a side, an addition to the meal. They didn't overeat. I found out they usually had a glass of wine around 5 o'clock every night. So that was some of the physical parts of that. The remainder of the Blue Zone aspects all centered around on having connection and purpose. They were very connected to their families. They had a positive connection to the people around them. They had a feeling of belonging to the place that they lived in. They had a purpose and a reason to get up in the morning. As a side note, they actually produced a couple of Blue Zone cookbooks recently. Just a side, we do have them at the library. They're wonderful cookbooks. So we knew at that point that connection and having a purpose and a feeling of being a part of a group of people was important to longevity. So since then, things have only gotten farther away from that. We've had worldwide, national, local events that have all contributed to pushing us away from that. Telecommuting, more cell phone times, of course, the pandemic, all worked us kind of spread us thinner. So this past May, the Surgeon General issued an advisory on the epidemic of loneliness, and it does actually affect individual and social health. He says that it's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases the chance of heart disease and stroke by 30%, dementia by 50%, and early death by 60%. He starts off, I embarked across a cross-country listening tour where I heard stories from my fellow Americans that surprised me. People began to tell me they felt isolated, invisible, insignificant. Even when they couldn't put their finger on the word lonely, time and time again, people of all ages and socioeconomic backgrounds from every corner of the country would tell me, I have no one, I have to shoulder all of life's burdens by myself, or if I disappear tomorrow, no one will even notice. It was a light bulb moment. Social disconnection was far more common than I had realized. In scientific literature, I found confirmation of what I was hearing. In recent years, about 1 in 2 adults in America reported experiencing loneliness, and that was before the COVID-19 pandemic cut off so many of us from friends, loved ones, and support systems. Given the profound consequences of loneliness and isolation, we have an opportunity and an obligation to make the same investments in addressing social connection that we have made in addressing tobacco use, obesity, and the addiction crisis. If we fail to do so, we will pay an ever-increasing price in the form of our individual and collective health and well-being, and we will continue to splinter and divide until we can no longer stand as a community or a country. Instead of coming together to take on the great challenges before us, we will further retreat to our corners, angry, sick, and alone. So, in order to meet this epidemic, he gave 6 pillars, which I printed off and completely forgot back at the library. So the first pillar, very, very important to us, strengthening social infrastructure, specifically mentioning libraries, parks, and playgrounds, places that bring people together. It's amazing. We are the first pillar in solving the epidemic. Our building, I think, is really nicely set up for this. We've got the general seating area where a number of groups already meet to talk and come together. We've got the teen lounge where teens hang out, and then the family area where I think daily there's groups of parents that talk while their children play and learn. Second pillar is pro-connection in public policies and advocates for a connection in all policies procedure. So, stance of connection in all policies. So in all levels of government, again, trying to help and especially promote things that bring people together. I think, again, the library does a great job with this, especially through the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that everybody in our community can feel like they have a place to go and a community to belong to. The third pillar talks about mobilizing the health sector to understand and support the issue. 4 is the reevaluation of how we use technology. One of the things that he talked about in his letter is how the isolation started before the pandemic. And if you look at the graphs of aloneness, it started really between 2010 and 2015, which also is the spike, the point at which over 50% of people had cell phones, and really the rise in most of the prominent social media platforms that we're aware of today. So that heavily points on evaluating social media and people's use of social media, because it occupies our time and takes people away from connection with one another. 5 is conducting more research. can't really do a whole lot on that directly. 6 is cultivating connection, fostering kindness, respect, uh, and respect and to work on connection in communities, schools, and workplaces. I think this is also something that we can make a lot of headway within the library. So while this is a big problem and something that's definitely not um, a light topic, I do feel as though it's something very energizing for my work and for the library as a whole, because this is something that we can make a huge impact on. I think one of the first and foremost things that we can do as a library is to be intentional in being community and in trying to form community within our events. So tonight, for instance, we're having an art event right now. Um, rather than just setting up tables for people to do art, we purposefully put them in a circle so that people can talk and interact with one another. We have returning people who are coming back together, bringing in friends so that more people can attend. We're aiming, I'm trying to do a lot more work in the 20 to 50 age group, which is a heavy part of our population. These are the people that come out to our city events and provide the large populations, a lot of young families, a lot of families with young kids, aiming for events that occur 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, which pushes my schedule back a little bit. It's always a little bit of a juggling act between working during the day and being at events at night. But hopefully one of the kids or something, they'll be able to leave the kids with a parent. Maybe one of the kids is starting to go to sleep for the night, allowing them to come out and get that connection that they don't have. I mean, I know as a parent of young children, having young children in itself is fairly isolating because there's not a whole lot of time for social connection when you've got a 2-year-old destroying your house at the same time. And I think it's safe to say that population with North Liberty's growth is a lot of people are coming in without that social connection. Many people who are coming in just don't have people here already. We have a number of events coming up this fall that are, I don't want to say more mundane, but more manual task craft related, allowing people to talk. We bring in some snacks, we bring in some themed drinks, allow them to bring in a bottle of wine to share, make it a social event that they can attend. Book wreaths, quilling, making gift bags. None of them they're all really cool actually to see done, but they're also very manual in doing so. Hopefully they'll get some interaction there. We have an additional gathering for seniors starting this spring. We've already got the 55 plus connection lunch that meets every Friday. We're going to do Tuesday mornings, and it's going to rotate activities the same way that the lunch does. Card and board games, puzzles, arts and crafts, and a book discussion. We're not sure about the book discussion because that was a little tentative on the survey. We also just held a focus group for seniors and parents as part of our IDEA committee, the inclusion committee, and found that a lot of the seniors that are here just moved here to be close to family, so they don't have a social connection. Many of them also just have lost a spouse. So again, looking for that additional connection. We just got a grant to do conversational English sections, which is a relaxed atmosphere for people who are learning English to come and practice and to be immersed in it in a low pressure situation, unlike a doctor's office, a job. They can just be around it. The benefit is it also provides a community for people who aren't necessarily familiar with the language, who may also be newly immigrated to the country, which is, I mean, in both not speaking the language and immigrating, a very isolating act. And we are very, very early on working on sort of a kickstart process for community groups. I know my predecessor had a number of people come to her wanting to start community groups. I've had at least 3 wanting to start community groups, more than what we have time and faculty to do. So we're wanting to make sure that they have sort of the beginnings of how to to form a group, as well as being able to reach a bunch of people in our community who may be interested. Chess and artists are two of them that I've had come to me. At the same time, we would make sure that they are aligning with library policies, but then in return, we would help them develop timelines, goals, to reserve rooms, and then of course to advertise a little bit. And then there's some other things that are really early on that I'm working on, but haven't really, don't feel comfortable in telling you anything about yet. So yeah, I think this is something that we can really help with, and hopefully we can make it better before it gets worse.
Anybody have questions for Nick? Comments?
Well, I don't know if it's really a question, but North Liberty doesn't have a senior center, do we?
Yeah, it's more. I thought it was more out towards Solon. There's like a retirement.
Well, we don't have a senior center like they
Kind
do
of-
the one in Iowa City where
I
they do
was gonna
programming.
say,
No.
Yeah.
No.
So the library kind of can fill in for that void to
Yeah,
help out. So that's nice.
and I've talked to them a little bit. They have a grant to provide services to North Liberty. They've started doing I don't remember what they're calling it, but it's a bereavement group who meet at noon over at the Ranshaw house once or twice a month, I think, which I had the idea of too, but they've kind of got that going
And the Ranshaw House, is that the house that's
right
the
behind
old
the library.
historical, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that big one. Nice.
Yeah, they're starting to use that for some programming.
Nice.
United Action for Youth is having groups there,
Okay.
teen groups, and then they're doing some senior programming. Senior center's doing some things there.
Well, I'm excited to hear about the ESL, basically language group. I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I taught English as a foreign language to junior high school students. So that's really nice to have something,
Mhm.
like you said, that's a relaxed environment where people can just talk and basically practice, using their English.
Mhm.
So that's really nice.
Nick said we got the grant, but he actually wrote that grant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thanks.
How long will that program be able to run for?
The first batch was trying to do the math. I believe it was 40 sessions,
Oh, wow.
40 weeks.
Wow.
I wanted it to meet, and this is kind of where the grant came in rather than doing it myself, 40 weeks in a row, because I just didn't think that was something that I could do schedule wise
Yeah.
to commit to that. And I didn't think that doing it like once a month was sufficient. So,
So has it already started?
I was just notified about it last week.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
And so we need to get a contract together and find a person who's willing to teach it.
That's great. I know I used to serve on the
Facilitate.
library board for Corville, and there's a guy that he volunteers, but he runs English classes there in the evenings as well.
Very
So
nice.
I think it's great that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
There was one conversational class that used to be held at the Zion Lutheran Church prior to the pandemic, and then it ended and hasn't restarted since.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, just wanted to just say thank you for bringing up the epidemic of loneliness. I think that's often an uncomfortable topic for people to bring up because, I mean, it's loneliness. When you're lonely, you don't really want to talk to anybody. And I think that sheds a light on certain aspects that that we as a library can definitely help other people out. So thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to the library.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
for having me here.
you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm going to go to my program.
All right. Have fun. Thanks.
Was that art event cooler than this meeting?
Probably.
All right. Okay. Good answer.
All right.
All right. On to reports.
All right. I'll just jump in. Budget report. We are sitting right. 25% is the average this time of year because we're a quarter in, and we are at 23%, which is really great. Our personnel leveled off like I figured it would. So I think we're doing well. We're not, the normal things where the contractual services, as I say every month, are where we're up, and or the utilities. The utilities are high, so I'll keep an eye on that. But I think it's just the time of year and the weird weather factors. So that you typically will level off and then kind of spike again at the end. So, and that is all for the budget. Does anyone have questions or anything stand out for you on the budget?
No.
No. As I mentioned, the Friends just had their meeting and agreed to do $500 for our for the bookshelf that Nick requested that we take some ownership in, and we're pretty excited about that. And then they just had their second book sale in September of the year, which we've never done a second annual sale, and they didn't make a heck of a lot of money. But I don't know if it was timing, or we'll have our meeting in our next meeting isn't until December, and when we have that meeting, we'll talk about what they think about doing that again or not doing it or changing up the date. So we'll see what they say. I think they made maybe $300, but we'll see. And that is the Friends report. And if you guys want, I can just jump right into mine.
Please do. Yeah.
All right. So we have 3 new part-time people. One started last week, one started today, and one starts tomorrow. So Kelly is rolling through getting them going. We hired a library assistant too, as Corey will be assuming the full-time position of assistant adult services in January to help Nick out. So one of those will step into her role, and then the other 2 fill. There had the person who left, Nathan, back in the summer. So we decided to just do 2 more bodies and try to balance it out. We have some people who split schedules because they have other jobs or school. So just having the extra leverage of having enough staff to be able to schedule, it always seems like a challenge. One of our new staff members, one of our library assistant ones, is bilingual, so we're excited about that. I was going to mention that just as an aside, we had a Spanish speaker come into the library a couple weeks ago and sit down with our coffee group, and they asked if we had anyone to speak with them. One of our staff does speak Spanish, but she was not there. And then Nick said he's passable, but he's just learning with his daughter. So he's working on it, but we did not have anyone there who can speak Spanish. So we had an interesting discussion about some things, like she actually, I don't think she wanted anyone to help her because she's trying to learn. So that was a conversation that I'll get into a little bit later when I talk about our Association for Rural and Small Library Conference, because I learned some things there that I thought was interesting. Just mentioning, we are getting the library carpet and upholstery cleaned here shortly. It is in dire need, so happy to have that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be meeting with Coralville and Iowa City directors on Wednesday this week to talk a little bit more about what we can do as a group and what that might look like. We want to make sure we have a unified voice throughout the community, in Johnson County. Talk about Nick's grant that he just brought up, the conversational English grant that he just got. And then, as we mentioned, there's the Friends thing. So a lot of this has already been said. And then I just put a link in here to a story on KCRG that Kelly did an interview for the mural with the artist and Kelly. Our artist came and finished up some last minute touches of things that had been missed on the mural and moved the next day to Hawaii. So she is, yes,
Oh my gosh.
she went to visit her sister and decided to move, apparently. So but she did get her stuff finished first, so that was lovely. And then we just had a request to host 2 practicum students in the spring. One of them is interested in youth services and collections, and the other one is more interested in the public service side. So that we'll have different staff kind of working with the 2 different folks coming in. Which they get to spend the whole semester with us, several hours a week. So it's kind of a nice overview for them to see the library. That we've done quite a few of these. I think we're going to have another one in the fall, because I met a young person at conference who is interested and wants to request our library apparently too. So that's awesome. It's always nice to have the extra bodies and give some new folks a chance to see what it's like behind the lines. So I just was going to mention a few things from conference that I learned. I wasn't going to go through a lot of it. We talked a lot about just sustainability in libraries at the Iowa Library Association conference last week, which I thought was really cool. There is a sustainable library program that you can be involved in, and our Iowa Library Association just signed an agreement with them to allow for libraries to do the work at no cost this year and learn more about um, how we can make our community or library sustainable. And I'm very excited about that because it's something that kind of is a passion of mine, just personally, but also we try to do what we can at the library to be less likely to print and try to recycle as much as possible. So we'll be excited to add more to that. And then, as I mentioned, I attended a session called Goldilocks at your meeting, which was just the right amount of Robert's rules, basically was what it was. And one of the suggestions that they did have that we might want to consider is, and we just have to decide if we do or not, is it's in the bylaws where we have that we are governed by Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure. They said that you could say that we follow it or some other little lighter word, but I don't think it's anything too huge, and I'm not sure that it's something we require because we do pretty well, I think, inspired by, yeah. Yeah. And the other thing she mentioned, which we know is true, and we did work on our public comment procedure last year, but we are not required to have public comment on our meetings unless we choose, and that is the decision of the chair or the president. And so she just talked about some different things and how it protects us and the public when we do Robert's Rules. So I think it's important. She gave some things about about the small group versus large group, which included in a small group, the chair or the president will participate as our president does. The motion can be after discussion in a small group where the motion has to be before discussion in a larger meeting. No second is needed. You do need a motion, but not a second to make a vote in a small group. It's more, you can have informal debate instead of that formal debate that they do. And then no motion is needed before a vote if you choose not to go that route. But we've just kind of always done it that way. I don't know that it's caused any issues, so I don't really see any reason to change it. And then they just talked about the speaker limits and things, which we did, get aligned when we were working on our things. I also went to a program called Community Heart and Soul, which is out of Postville. I mostly found it interesting that Postville has like 6 or 7 languages spoken in their community of like 2,300 people.
Wow.
I found it was really interesting, and that some of the things she does to connect with her community, I thought was great. So just it's not something we would probably do because it's more smaller than us, I think, but there are pieces of it that would definitely be useful. And she actually says, here's some things that you could pull from it without actually doing the program itself. They also have 70% of their population is under the age of 19, which I thought was insane.
Wow.
And then I did go to one on, it's called the national poll that Grinnell College did on book bans and trusting your teacher librarians to do their work. They gave quite a breakdown of just that basically the bottom line is that the majority of people trust librarians to do their jobs and select books. It's well over 70%. And we know that's the truth across the country. In fact, at one of the meetings I was at a couple weeks ago, they said that they identified that there are really 11 people nationally that are responsible for 60% of the book challenges that are happening because of what they're pushing, the agenda they're pushing, which I found really, really interesting. There's a whole article about it. It's crazy. So that was the ILA. And then a few weeks ago, I went to ARSL, which I've got to find there it is. So ARSL, the main thing I guess that I would talk about from ARSL is not so much the sessions that I went to, but a discussion. We had a meeting with John Kraska, who's the head of Every Library. Every Library is a nonprofit that works with libraries across the country to help them with funding challenges that are happening in their communities and book challenges. And they work on civil liberties and First Amendment rights. So listening to John speak just about the importance of advocacy and those things, I think just talking about that we need at some point to have a national library agenda that's unified, a unified voice. So we're talking locally now, but I think it's kind of the work I've been talking about for a while. Just how do we all come together to be to focus on what the whole library system, all of us need, and launching a big public advocacy campaign for libraries. I was trying to see if there was anything else. So really what he talked about was that we want to capitalize on civic society rather than like civil liberties or civil rights, because those things, if those First Amendment things are erasure of humans, is what civil rights is. Those aren't going to draw people's attention. What's going to draw people's attention is the civil society, which is community of citizens linked by common interests. And this is an ongoing theme that I'm hearing in the meetings that I've been going to. So I think you'll hear more as I know more. I'm attending a meeting in Des Moines next month that I'll share with you guys here shortly. But his campaign is called Fight for the First, and it's something that we're signing on to just to help advocate or activate locally, get us ready to go if things are happening. The other one that I was going to talk to you about is the cultural understanding. I went to a session on hiring for cultural understanding, and I really loved the idea of they hire folks who can connect with certain cultures in the community. For them, it was they have they're near a reservation, so they have a Native American librarian who was hired, and then they have a Hispanic librarian who was hired to work there. But what they talked about with the Hispanic librarian was that they had someone come in and did not speak English, and the Hispanic library, they were frantically searching for her, and she came out, and the person said, no, I don't want to talk to her. I'm trying to learn. So something we need to be keeping in mind a lot, and something that Melanie, who's our marketing person, brought up to me the other day, and that is because I was talking about we used to try to get things translated on our website. Will translate for folks, but we're talking about not doing the translation except for having like a link to translators so that people can translate for themselves, because we don't want to set people up to assume that we have someone who can speak their language when they come to the library, because in most cases we're not going to be able to do that. I have found, though, that using a translator on your phone actually works pretty well to at least be able to communicate. I've done it a couple times now with folks. So we'll continue to plug away on those things. And if we can hire for those cultural competences, that's always an important thing for us. We have questions on our interview questions that we center on cultural competence. We also, this time around, shared questions with our interviewees beforehand. That was another thing that I recently read about doing. It's sort of like we're not doing a pop quiz here. We don't want people, we're setting people up to succeed, and just giving them the questions ahead of time can put people at ease a little bit more. Folks were really impressed that we did that. And it's kind of like when you see a car that you never see and then you see them everywhere after that. Now I've seen that same thing happening in multiple arenas where they're sharing the questions in advance. We didn't share all of the questions. We just gave them a few to get them started so they would know sort of the tone of what the interview would look like. And then moving on to professional activities, we just talked about Wichita and the Iowa Library Conference. So I am attending a conference in November called Policy Wise, which is a nonpartisan one-day conference offered by a Common Good Iowa. I just actually spoke with Ryan about being able to go attend that conference, and he agreed that that was a good fit. So I will be traveling to Des Moines for that. I will also be traveling to Des Moines. I just found out actually 2 more times in November and December for Iowa Library Association meetings. On one is a planning day meeting, and the other is meeting with a new management company that we're hiring since I am on the executive board. So few day trips, but no more overnight. I keep saying I'm done traveling, and then I just found out about these 3. Luckily, they're all 2 hours away and not overnight or flying anymore for a while. And that is all I have in my report. If you guys have questions about the other folks, the other staff reports, let me know. I will tell you some fun things. The art exhibit wall that we have in the library is booked out through the end of 2024 now. And we have some people waiting, so that's pretty cool. We've got some wonderful artists in there. We're going to be filling the entire case with artwork this next time around, which is I don't think we've ever done, so that's pretty cool. I thought there was one other thing that I wanted to make sure to highlight. If you guys did not know, the Iowa State game that they had with the watch party they had at the Colony Pumpkin Patch drew over 1,000 people. So that was crazy. And then the costume closet, which was a first for us this year. Also, they had at least 90 shoppers come in, and most of them, everybody walked out with a costume. So they were happy about that. And then they took the rest of them to the food pantry so that we could make sure that people maybe who didn't have the opportunity to have a costume would maybe have one. And I think that is the main ones that I was trying to highlight. I always find Andrew's reports really interesting. And he did some really fun comparisons this month. So if you haven't had a chance to look at those, I would recommend it. And that is all the reports, unless anybody has any questions.
Perfect. I don't have anybody else.
Yeah, no question.
Oh, no question.
Okay. On to policy review. First is the meeting room use policy. Let's see here. I had a student at Northwest go over the policy with me.
That's awesome.
She went over the meeting room collection and statement of concern form as well. And excuse me, she's very into. She's very active in the community, I guess is the best way to put it without tripping over my own words. And she just made sure that the language of those was inclusive and there wasn't anything that was alienating towards certain members. She actually helped me with my statement earlier, making sure that I didn't sound crazy. So a big thank you to her, but we'll go ahead with the meeting room use policy.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of suggested changes. You'll see in red the main change is just adding some examples of qualifying use. One of our staff recommended something a little more specific than this, which I don't want to box us in with specifics, but I did think that having an addition of just like some different types of uses would be good, so that people could kind of see. And then the only other thing is just a little bit of word changing in the non-qualifying use, which is mainly just to make sure people understand that, we just don't host private things. And it's because we just don't have the capacity. We'd have the rooms booked all the time if we did.
Well, and that's what the rec center is for too, right? I mean, they have those
they have the other
parties
opportunity to use those rooms.
It's not like a hotel meeting room where.
Yeah, I mean, because I had a birthday party in the rec center one time. So yeah.
The only other addition then is under that same section. I recommended just changing the prior notification if we were going to cancel something to 2 weeks instead of 6. Just I don't know that we've ever actually canceled on anyone's reservations, but 6 weeks is a long way out. Some folks aren't even booking them for 2 weeks or whatever.
Right.
So just to give it a little bit of a less window, the only time that would ever happen is if we had some sort of like big, huge author who said they were going to come for free and, or, something crazy where we just were like, we really have to use the space. And then what we've done when we haven't had a space for someone is help them work with the rec to get them a room. So we're not leaving them high and dry ever, but those are the main things for that. And then if you guys want, I can just go down into, I asked Jack to add the collection development and statement of concern back in, because I just want to make sure that we are well equipped to handle if we were to have someone bring a statement of concern up. The main thing is we want to have it set so that, and it does say in the statement of concern, which we pulled out of policy, and I need to pull it out of the program policy as well because it's there too. But I think we can just wait till we're ready to review that policy again. But we want to have them step through, at least speaking with me first. Before they even fill that out, so that a lot of times it's just a discussion and it never goes any further than that. So I think that that's important. Most of the things that I have changed in here, which they are a little bit, there's a little bit significant changes. Most of them are pretty smaller semantics, but there is a few, and the one is just some shifting around. But then the one, where is it? Well, the items are considered as a whole, evaluated as a whole, not on the basis of a section, which is something that often happens when people do challenge. And then talking we had in there, since we are not the only ones selecting those, I wanted to make sure we were covered that those are selected by multiple people. And then and it's in the statement of concern, actually, the part that I wanted to point out, which was changing the top a little bit. We already had in there that we subscribe to the ARSL and the ALA intellectual freedom documents. The last part is the last sentence is the key one, which is therefore the library will not remove specific titles solely because someone finds them objectionable. We just want to make sure that when they see this form, they just don't assume that we're going to pull something because they filled out a form. And then I just kind of shifted some of that was already in the bottom, so that's why I moved some of it up to the top. But I think that is all. The changes are just pretty small ones, except it looks really busy on that collection development, but it's really not that many changes. It's just shifting around. Most of them are rewording slightly to make them a little bit more succinct or to make more sense.
Looks like an English paper that I wrote. But that's okay.
Can we motion to approve all three at once?
Yeah,
Is that
I was
cool?
just going to bundle and save like progressive. So, do I have a motion to approve the meeting room use policy, collection development, and statement of concern?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Perfect. And we will call a vote. All that approve?
Aye.
Aye. All that disapprove? Wow. All right. The policy review for meeting room use policy, collection development, and statement of concern is okayed, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word.
Approved.
There we go. Sorry, I'm used to talking to 8th graders all day. So, any old business as we move on, or did I miss something? Any old business? Mr. Vice President, any old business?
No, there is not.
Okay. New business? Any new business? I would make a motion under new business to recognize November as Epilepsy Awareness Month in the library. And I'd be more than willing to provide just a brief overview of kind of what epilepsy is and how it impacts families, silently or out loud. And, just like anything else, it's a life changer. And as someone who suffers from it, it's every day is a challenge. So with that, I make a motion to make November Epilepsy Awareness Month in the library.
I don't know if you need to second that or anything. Or,
If someone wants to
yeah.
I
second
don't know
it,
if
it's
you need
okay.
to
It won't
make
hurt
it
my
a-
feelings if no one does.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Perfect. All right. Then November is officially recognized as Epilepsy Awareness Month at the North Liberty Library. It's fun because it's epilepsy is purple. So if you have purple, I will wear it all of November. Other than that, let's adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn. Who wants to go home first?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Awesome.
All right.
Yep.
What's that?